Okay, so this is the work meeting. I apologize, somebody already pointed out to me that on the agenda, I did not put work meeting 6:30, regular meeting 7. So all of you are gonna have to sit through the work meeting. I apologize if you didn't really want to sit through it. So, it's my bad that I did not mark that on the agenda. So what I want to talk about, what we're going to talk about in the work meeting first, if we have time, we can talk about a couple of other things, but I wanted to talk about our meetings. So every year in November, December, we always have to move our town council meeting to a different day because since we meet on the fourth Wednesday of the month, our meetings in November, December always conflict with the holidays. And the whole reason we moved today's meeting, Wednesday's meeting to today, Monday, was because when we set our December meeting on the 21st, that Wednesday, he already had a meeting, that's the regular meeting night for Chocobo. So he was not going to be able to be here, and we wanted him to be here, so we had to move it to another night. So we ended up with tonight. And he made the comment, well, if you guys would move your meetings from the fourth Wednesday of the month, you wouldn't have to change it every Wednesday, November, December. And I thought, well, he's got a point. So I wanted to talk about two things with regard to our meetings. One, if we want to move our meetings from a different night, from the fourth Wednesday of the month to a different night, then you have to be Wednesday, it could be Tuesdays for all I care. I don't really have any preference for what night of the week our meetings are. And then Paul had, when we were doing during this pay brouhaha, Paul mentioned that he didn't have any objection to the increased pay if we had our work meetings separate, had 2 meetings a month. And I have a lot of stuff that I'm planning on us working on next year that will take up a lot of our work meetings. So I was also proposing that we have our work meetings separate from the same night as our regular meeting and have 2 meetings a month. One would be the work meeting, and one would be the town council meeting, the actual regular meeting where we do business. So that's what I want us to talk about tonight. 2 meetings a month, work meetings separate, and then have our town council meeting some night other than the fourth Wednesday of the month. So I wanted to get everybody's input on that. So open up for discussion.
I agree. I think that's fine with me, as long as the work meetings before.
Yes, I was thinking it might be like a week before, completely different day.
Because I think whatever we discuss in the work meeting, we might want to bring it down.
Correct, that's exactly. So I was thinking they could be a week apart. And for all I know, maybe planning commission may want to take this opportunity to change their meetings to a different day. So what does your calendar, do you have, Misty, do you have days where you have something on certain nights that you just can't do?
Why don't I just tell you nights that are easy? It's better if I tell you Tuesday nights are good. I don't like the idea of doing them on Monday nights, but Tuesday nights are always good. Wednesday nights are hit or miss with my family. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are my days.
Your best, okay. What about you, Gene? What's your thoughts?
Tuesdays are a tough one for me, but it's only once a month, so I can make it work on Tuesdays.
No, we were talking about making twice a month.
Twice a month.
Work meetings,
Yeah,
one
Tuesdays
day.
would be tough. I can do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, or even Fridays. I can do Mondays, I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay,
Not in Utah.
yeah, and this was a special occasion today. Yeah, I was already told, why are we doing this on Monday? It's like, we had to work it out with me. So, yes, what do you think, Paul?
I like the fourth Monday or fourth Wednesday or fourth Tuesday of the month. Because what that, if planning board doesn't change, it gives them an extra day to get whatever their, or extra week, whatever comes out of planning and zoning, an extra week to get up to here.
I understand that, but my thought was, even if,
And with the work session too.
what?
What was your thought?
That it didn't matter if our meetings were earlier in the month, they'll still be 2 weeks apart from planning commission. Whenever I'll try to get planning commission to move theirs to be 2 weeks before ours, whenever that is, so that.
So why would you want that to happen?
Want what to happen?
Why would you want to see planning board move theirs?
If we move ours, say a week early, let's say we move ours to the third Wednesday of the month. I suppose theirs could stay on the second Wednesday, that'd be 1 week between
What
them.
I was suggesting, we do the fourth, and I like Tuesdays is fine if that works, or the Wednesday. The fourth Tuesday and Wednesday of the month is great, and it gives you more time between planning board and town council for matters that come out of the planning board to get to the town council. That's my thinking, but
If
but
what-
I don't know what kind of pressure that puts on, Chris.
I don't think it'll change anything. If we move it from the fourth Wednesday to the fourth Tuesday for the regular meeting, I don't think that's gonna have any effect on what Crystal does.
No, I was
I
thinking,
think Wednesdays or Tuesdays are a great night, just because looking at the calendar, we would have to move a couple of Wednesdays if we kept it on that Wednesday, but Tuesdays are good, are better. As far as holidays and stuff goes.
because in November, the fourth Wednesday is right before Thanksgiving.
Right, but I'm
So
just
the
saying,
Tuesday,
Tuesdays do look a little better as far as holidays, graduations, things like that.
I can arrange my schedule either way.
so I'm good with the fourth Tuesday.
Okay, well, I can tell you right now that in December, this next year, the fourth Tuesday is the day after Christmas, so we'll be moving that one anyway, whether we have it on Tuesday or Wednesday.
We seem to always have to move December.
That's why I was hoping we could actually move it to a different week of the month, even get away from
Well,
the
if you guys move it to the third Tuesday,
third Tuesday works better with both holidays, that's for sure.
Just for November.
Is there a whole reason for moving just because third Wednesdays have a,
Fourth Wednesdays, we have to move every single year, we have to move our meetings. And when we've moved them a week earlier to the third Wednesday of the month, he can never be here because that's the October meetings, they meet the third Wednesday, so he's like, they're pre-existing, they take precedence. So he had suggested, find a different day of the month that you guys meet, then you don't have to rearrange like this and have conflicts.
is this only for November, December? Though, or I guess-
Right now, it's just that, but the thought was if we're gonna move it for those months, if we're going to have a regular calendar, it needs to be consistent for every month.
if you do
That's what
the
I'm thinking.
third Tuesday, in July, you'll miss your holidays. Or you'll be fine with your holidays there. It also works around Memorial Day.
Having two
And-
Tuesday meetings a
and
month with me is difficult.
Mhm.
That would
The other meeting doesn't have to be a Tuesday. It
But I
could be
think it's
another
1
day.
year, so I mean, we only got 1 year. I think that Tuesday.
Yeah, I figured you might be.
Is that too close to, is it too close to planning and zoning to have our meeting on the third Wednesday? Because there's
10
second
business days or
Wednesday,
10 total days?
There's the
Well,
second-
lately with planning and zoning, it's been a whole month in between of what comes out. So if we're still gonna continue to, what planning and zoning goes through goes on the next month, then it will be fine. Like everything that just passed for December, isn't going to be on until January. You know what I mean?
Anyway,
So-
yeah.
So if they keep that, then we're totally fine when it comes to date wise, but if we did the third Tuesday, then you're missing all the holidays.
What, you mean it works to avoid all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're 2 days away from Thanksgiving if you do it on a Tuesday. or Thursday.
But it's still doable.
Yeah, it's still doable.
Okay, so if for 2023, we move our meetings to the third Tuesday, is that what we said? Third Tuesday instead of the fourth Wednesday, then our work meetings, we were talking about doing them before the town council meeting, so that if whatever we talk about at the work meeting is going to be on the town council meeting. What days would you guys suggest that we do as a work meeting? Tuesday, well, you said Tuesdays don't work for you. To do 2 Tuesdays a month don't work. Okay,
What about the second Thursday?
I don't,
That'd be after your planning zoning.
Thursdays, you said Thursdays don't
I
really
can
work for
do,
you?
I can do them, it's just tough decisions, but I can make it work.
She can sit over there with her phone and play games.
It's true, this is true. I can make it work. It's, you compromise with Tuesdays, I can.
I was just thinking if we have, if planning and zoning doesn't change our meeting, that would give us, we'd be able to take what they voted on the night before.
And then it'll be on our work meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, does that work okay with you? What about you, Leroy?
That's fine.
Are you wanting work meetings every month?
What?
Are you wanting work meetings every month?
Yes, and then if it turns out we don't need one month, we can just say no work meeting this month, but,
You said it's the second.
second Thursday,
So it's the third Tuesday for town, the second
Thursday for work meetings.
You're gonna have to move your capital improvement fee.
Well, we don't even, what day did we just set for our second?
February 9th at 5 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah, but this, that wouldn't start later.
that's true. Yeah, so if the, capital improvements was at 5 o'clock, did Wyatt say he meant 5 o'clock? Okay.
That was for what?
That was for Wyatt, yeah, I just couldn't, if he said 5 or 6. So if we make February 9th, if we have ours at 6:30 or 7, then that is not gonna conflict with capital improvements.
How long do you want your work meeting?
I'm thinking an hour and a half, not very, not near like these meetings. But I saw that smile.
It really depends on what's coming.
Yeah. So how does this work for you, Crystal?
Takes a long time.
I know. Okay, I will, research a little bit on the necessity for you at the work meetings. To be there. I'll see how, what the code
I mean,
requires.
I don't mind it, but when I work
I know,
15-hour, 15-hour days,
I know.
it's exhausting.
You don't have to explain to me. I got it. Okay. So then when we come back in January, I'll have a resolution for the meeting dates on there, but we'll go ahead and have our first work meeting on the 12th, even though we haven't voted on the calendar. Okay, and then at the town council meeting, Heath, we were just working on changing the dates for our town council meetings, which you had suggested. How, I just realized you weren't here. Third Wednesday of the third Tuesday. How does that look for you?
That works.
Okay.
Wednesday would be challenging, but
Third Tuesday. Yeah, I knew third Wednesday was not gonna work for you, but third Tuesday.
so you said the 12th, but you 17th then?
The 17th for the town council meeting, but the 12th is our first work meeting. Yeah. And then the meeting on the 17th, January 17th, we'll vote on, we'll pass the resolution setting all our calendar dates for the rest of 2023. Okay, all right. We have 12 minutes before we start the regular meeting, so we'll take a break for 12 minutes. Yes, 17th.
Yes.
Just wondering. Now, is this what's inside and uses that's supposed to transfer the motion down here? This is the map.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just have to change.
Change, okay. And they're the ones who print this.
No, I take it off.
And
That was a financial statement. That's
And
what's on the
you
front.
do this. That's what I thought. I thought this was your thing.
And I could change it off. Had to change it off.
Okay, all right.
They have to decide whether it's worth going on.
Well, they have to decide whether they have time to do that. So that's why. I personally know that might be more. Okay.
It's just not that.
Percentage revenue.
I'm sure they're already.
In return.
It's still falls in that range.
Reimbursement.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's probably, that's probably
Possibly actually extra.
several years. Okay.
Will the sheriff's department bills or will they do? Because we haven't spent.
We haven't paid them money.
We paid the Washington County.
The sheriff, we haven't paid them a penny. Are they supposed to? Okay, we have to follow up on that.
They bill quarterly, and he just, I think, sent a check out this, or maybe not.
Yeah, but for 5 months into the year.
For 5
they
months
should
into the
bill.
year, they never sent us a bill.
I can probably do it in the morning.
That's all.
It's came out fast last night. I thought it was 100 because that was messing with Timothy Hay.
Yeah.
Downstairs and stuff, kind of rattle through. Still feel great too. Yeah, she's nice. just sitting there for so long.
So I kind of looked at it.
Yeah. What did he say was the food was from the class?
I guess you changed the meeting time. Of course, I got a text. Mason, this is Mason. Didn't want all else. Still, it really feels good.
I read it. If you want to-
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm bringing the meeting back to order after our little break. And I do this every time. Ask Gene, he's in such bad shape.
I'm sick.
You'll do it?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, thank you, Misty. All right, so I'm calling the meeting to order, and Misty has volunteered to do the opening thought or prayer. Thank you. So Misty, pledge first.
Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father which art in heaven, we ask thee to please be with us and help us to have clear minds and to think of the needs of our entire town and to come together and make the best decisions that we can. We thank you for this beautiful country. We thank you for our beautiful town. We ask thee to continue to bless us with prosperity. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, does anyone on the town council have a conflict of interest with
Yes.
anything on the agenda? You do what, Paul?
Since we haven't yet moved item 3A, I think we all have, like this time, conflict of interest, but we can all act under the rules of the city.
Correct. Okay. Anything else? Any other conflicts of interest? Is that a no from everyone?
Do we need to all acknowledge that we
Yes.
have a conflict of
Yes.
interest with
Yes.
item three
Yeah,
A?
you can't just sit there and
So
say.
yes, we all have.
Well, no, we already admit, we all have a conflict of interest in that. I've asked him of anything
I think
else.
we all have to say,
Okay,
Yeah, so I'll acknowledge, yes, I do have a 3A.
I also have one with 3.
and so do I.
Three,
So we all have a conflict of interest with 3A, but when well, I'll get to it when we talk to 3A. Okay, any other conflicts of interest by anyone? Is that a no?
No.
Okay. Council comments. I have 5 different things I was going to talk about. Some will be quick, one might take a little longer. First off, for those of you from Desert Gardens, you guys got the email that went out to all of you, letting you know what's going to happen with the streetlights there, but I haven't told the rest of the council. So what I decided to do was, because we're going to be doing a survey asking them about the lights there, I made arrangements with Rocky Mountain Power to turn out all the lights for 2 weeks so they can see what it's like with no lights, and then we can do a survey, and they know they actually have the information to be able to answer the survey. And the date that it's going to be, the lights turned off, and this is Rocky Mountain Power's suggestion, January 3rd, because that's the new moon. So you'll be able to see, assuming there's no clouds in the sky, that you guys will all be able to see all those stars and see what you're missing when there's streetlights. So that's Rocky Mountain Power suggestion that we do it January 3rd for 2 weeks. And because there'll be no moon, and so you should be able to see the stars. So that's what's going on with the lights in Desert Gardens. There's no one here tonight who lives on the other side of the 101 bridge, but we now have trash pickup that the trash trucks will cross the bridge behind the 101 and go over, pick up trash back there. And that's going to start this Thursday. So Jean, you might want to, if anybody shows up outside your house, with their trash can, you're going to chase them off and say, go back home. So that we shall see how that goes, crossing that bridge in the dark. That's number 2. Number 3, for the people on Pocketville Road, I am in the process of ordering some rumble strips to put across the road in the meantime to slow down traffic. They come in, they're an array of 3 strips. And so I went out yesterday and measured the width of the road to see exactly, because each rumble strip is 5.5 feet. And so to figure out how many strips we need altogether. And then I was guesstimating where the rumble strips would want to go. I figure there'll be a set of 3 between Highway 9 and the stop sign. Where do we want to put them? So I need input from people from Pocketville Road where they think those should go. And then I kind of guesstimated where I thought they would go from the stop sign by the fire station up to the stop sign at Co-op Terrace Road, where I thought was the appropriate place. But then I think the people on Pocketville Road should be the ones to determine where they think the strips should go. Although, as I was measuring the road, somebody stopped. This car pulls up and was like, do you need help? I'm like, no, just measuring the road. And this guy lives a new resident down there. And I told him we were measuring the road because we're gonna put in rumble strips. And he immediately said, you need to put them in the blind turn right down here. And I'm like, okay, so I already got input from one person. So some new person who works at under Canvas.
And as an FYI, you said that they would also include signs.
Yes, there will be, when we got the estimate from them, what it was gonna cost, they had 1 sign for each set of strips. And I said, no, we need 2 signs for each set of strips, 1 coming each direction. And so they're redoing the estimate to include that. But once we put the order for those strips, it'll be 6 to 8 weeks. So we're talking anywhere from January to mid-February that those rumble strips would be going in. That they would arrive, and they said, this was Utah Barricade, they said they would come and help install the strips because they're very heavy. Each one, even though they're 5.5 feet per strip, they're extremely heavy. And so they would help with the installation. Then let's see, that's the rumble strips. I did get notified yesterday. Got a text message that the whole neighborhood over there on Pocketville is in revolt about the that building. The fourplex. So I was notified yesterday that they are really, the neighborhood's in revolt. I was like, we'll see what, just, I'm aware. So I'm announcing it at the meeting so that they know I'm aware. And then everyone probably heard about Sheep Ridge Road and the county say that they were taking over Sheep Ridge Road, and I was trying to decide if I should just let Keith say what Eric Clark told you the other day, why they thought they had our approval when we were completely unaware that they were going to say this and do this.
So I'm gonna explain.
Sure, explain, because you've got people from
Well,
different
I
parts
wrote-
here.
I wrote a pretty strong email to both Eric Clark, the county attorney, and Devin Snow, the assistant civil county attorney. And I said, you know, I was contacted by the mayor and others who had heard that a resolution had been passed taking over maintenance of Class B roads is what the agenda says, because that's all I can see on the public notice website. Didn't have a copy of the resolution. I told him, please send this to me and please explain to me why no notice was given to the town. And he had emailed me back, apologized, sent me a copy of it, and it did only relate to Sheep's Bridge Road, not to all the Class B roads within the town. I saw him 2 days later at a lunch meeting. He came up and said, before this meeting's over, come talk to me. I want to know what we can do so that we can avoid this situation happening. Before he explained to me, and I had some recollection, I think that the county had approached the town a couple of years back about maintaining Sheep's Bridge Road. The town felt like it was fine to do that just because it would allow our Class B road funds to kind of go further. And sometimes the amount of the funds that we get for that stretch of road isn't enough to properly maintain it. Sometimes it can use blading and some work on it multiple times a year and stuff like that. Is what I remember. And what he tells me is that they do all those things whenever they're agreeing to maintain another municipality's road. They do it by resolution, and they had done one in that year when there had been specific communications with the town. I think that they required the town to either write them a letter or pass some resolution on our end. They passed the resolution on their end to maintain the roads. And then the next year, they just passed the resolution again. And then this year, they passed it the third time, just assuming, I guess, that everybody was good and fine with it. And I just explained to Eric that one, the description in their agenda could be a lot more clear too. Obviously, I think they should put in copies of the resolution up on the Public Notice website, so that we don't all have to guess whether or not they're trying to take over and maintain all the roads in the town. And three, that's the background on, maybe they should just reach out and touch, because I know they did the same thing with the road up in Rockville too. So each time they're gonna do this, just not to make the assumption that the current administration or current council is good with what a prior council several years back had agreed to.
Okay, so I thought I'd let you guys know that that's what that was about with this. When I figured you guys had all seen about the resolution being passed at the county. Okay, So that's all the council comments I had. Thank you, Heath, for explaining more. Anyone else? Any council comments from
I'm
you
gonna send
too?
my voice.
Okay. No, okay. Anything from you,
I just wanted to go over the November financials. Once again, we show an excess in revenue of 30,524. With expenses of 42,560, revenue of 72,085. And our revenue, we should be about 41% of our budget now. Our revenue is 45% of our budget. And our expenses should also be at 41% of our budget, and our expenses are at 29. So it shows we either budgeted more expenses than we expected, or we're managing that problem.
I'm sorry, which ones are you talking about?
Expenses coming.
Where are you talking about?
I'm on the first page on the far right. If you'll notice that the budgeted expenses should be 41.67, and we've actually spent 29.14%.
Oh, okay, I see it. Okay.
So it's being managed properly, and that's the only reason I bring this up, so the public knows that. There was a glitch in our program that didn't reprint, it didn't report to the financial statement any actual income from the water department, which would be the water bills we all pay. But talked to the CPA, and they're gonna come this week and fix that. But even without that income being reported, we still had an excess income or of $51,005 over expenses of $131,000. Income of $182,000, and that's year to date. So we're still okay there. Of course, we want to have an excess there because of how old our infrastructure is. There. So we keep that excess rolling, so it goes towards water system. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Misty, do you have any council comments? No. All right, so we're on to the consent agenda to approve the minutes of November 16th and to approve the checks and invoices for November 2022. If no one has any objections, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Anyone?
Okay, I'll move the approve item B, the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes from November 16th, 2022 town council meeting, and approval of checks, invoices for November of 2022.
Second. Paul?
Aye.
Jean, aye.
Leroy, aye.
Misty?
Aye.
Open forum. Public. Any comments? Name?
Lee Ballard. Hi. I wrote some comments for tonight's meeting, but since I made some late changes and wanted to make sure they're heard tonight, I'll now read them. Have a public.
Hold on.
Oh,
And I have to take this out.
I do realize that many or most of you are already aware of what I'm about to discuss, but I noticed in one of your previous meetings, and again at planning meetings the other night, that there's some confusion as to how an overlay zone works and about the difference between legislative decisions that create laws and administrative decisions that apply those laws. To use a current example, the SDR overlay is used to allow a certain use under certain conditions in a location where it may otherwise be prohibited. The underlying zone still rules in all other aspects. For instance, an STR in a residential zone may only be located in a single-family dwelling or a see that. An overlaid zone nevertheless requires a zone change, which can be processed alongside other requests, but which stands alone as a legislative decision affecting our zoning map and future land use. It is of interest to the public because it has an impact on our general plan. A rezone proposal requires hearings and consideration of input from the public. It requires a weighing of town goals and public desires, and ultimately a finding that it is in fact beneficial to the town. If objected to by the public or officials, it can be denied by lawmakers at their discretion. However, once the legislative decision is made to approve the rezone, the individual conditional use permits required to institute special use become administrative decisions. At this point, there will be little, if any, consideration given the public concern. Permits may only legally be denied if it can be shown that no mitigation is available for some serious conflict or problem. On a different topic, but related, if not very carefully limited, rezones to STR and approvals of residential hosting permits under new and proposed definitions could allow for drastic changes to residential neighborhoods. Virgin's plans had previously been based on residential impacts of one single family dwelling per acre. In fact, we promised to maintain that limitation via our contract with the Water Conservancy District, which provides a culinary water supply. Despite the language in the Conservancy District contract, we can presumably get away with adding other uses, but only if we keep all of those impacts at or below those equivalent to a single family dwelling. The town can protect itself from stepping over that line by having specific regulations regarding the impacts a use will have on culinary water, stormwater, wastewater volumes. Proper procedure limits defining the impact of a single family dwelling should include a limit of one single family water hookup, one septic tank size for one family, a limit on impervious surfaces to ensure fair and safe stormwater management, and a building capacity limit to a family size number. The number of bedrooms is one way that the health department measures impact, but the number of laundry facilities, kitchens, bathrooms, and other useful measures can be found via the local water, sewer, health, or fire authorities. Amendments and development approvals over recent years have increased the per acre impacts here to a point that depletes our resources more quickly than the town anticipated just a few years ago. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm James Densley, and first question about the Desert Gardens streetlights. Is it possible to move any of those lights?
I will have to think about that. We'll have to talk to Rocky Mountain Power and the other people in the neighborhood.
Because the reason I bring that up is, I know my neighbors don't necessarily want the lights, but they have one mounted right in front of their house.
But what? I'm
They
sorry.
have a light mounted in front of their house, and they don't want it.
No, right.
But I live on a corner, basically a 90-degree curve. And if it's dark and people miss that curve, they go through this driveway into my front door. So I would like to have a light in front of my house for safety reasons. I appreciate the idea of the dark skies, but I really don't like the idea of people driving into the house if they miss the curve. That's a real safety issue. All right, second, while we're here, I am for the forgiving of the overpayment. Note that now. And also for the, let's see, what is it? The ordinance to change the outbuildings to 25 feet, I'm for that. So just put that in the notes. There's a lot of buildings, barns, and shops that really use the extra height.
Thank you. Anyone else for open forum? If not, then we're moving on for to section 3 on the agenda. So 3A, this is the section where we all said we have a conflict of interest, and last month I indicated that I would call and talk with the attorneys at the ULCT, or not necessarily the attorneys at ULCT, but I would consult with ULCT about whether or not we as a town council could proceed and vote on this issue when everyone has a conflict of interest. And their answer was yes, that we are the body to make this decision. And so we can make the decision. So that answers that issue about the conflict of interest. In the meantime, I was advised today, and I checked and verified, that at the last town council meeting, I said I would continue the public hearing on this topic to another public hearing. That was a month ago, which in today's world for me is like a year ago. And so I completely forgot, and I just set it on the agenda for us to vote. So with that in mind, it will have to be moved to a public hearing next month.
Mayor,
Yes.
was the last public hearing continued?
So,
I believe we did, Crystal and I listened to the meeting today to see what was said, and all during the discussion, we talked that we were going to continue the public hearing to the next month meeting now.
Okay.
The actual motion was to continue the item to today, not to continue the public hearing.
Yeah, because if the public hearing is continued, you don't have to republish it or anything like that. You just open it up for public comment.
Well, I was debating going ahead and opening it up to public comment anyway. Since it's on the agenda, I was going to let people go ahead and comment. Unfortunately, the
There was a reporter.
reporter who was
That
here,
wanted to cover this and we told him that wasn't probably gonna happen, so.
he asked, because he said, are you gonna vote on this tonight? He wanted to cover it. And I said, no, we're gonna continue it to a public hearing next month. So he said, I'm gonna leave. And so I think it would be unfair since he wanted to cover the topic for us to vote on it and leave him out in the cold like that.
Okay. It's your prerogative, and if you want to renotice it, have it on next one.
Okay. I don't want there to be, I said I would, so I will.
So we move on, because it's as an action item. Motion to table it to next meeting and reset, republish it.
Okay,
One with the motion.
Yeah, I'll make
Thank
them. Motion to table item 8, ordinance 2022-12 until next month.
And
And reset a public hearing.
And to reset a
Renotice.
public hearing proposed.
okay.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay. 3B. I had put this item on the agenda, expecting that it would receive an up or down vote at the planning commission. And instead, the planning commission voted to continue this to a work meeting in January.
So we don't have a recommendation.
No, we don't.
So because it's a amendment to our land use ordinance, it requires a recommendation from the planning commission. Council can act on it.
do you want to table it to the next month? Or do you want to move it?
What, I do have a question for you.
Go ahead.
He, under the statute, it also says that we can consider planning commissioners to make timely recommendation as a negative recommendation.
Can, is this the first time they've heard it?
This one, yes.
Okay, on that, I would probably, good point, Paul, and I think there might be something, another one where I was informed that it's been considerable time on that. Probably more likely where the council should, we probably shouldn't revoke or kind of override that power in the thought process on state statute on the planning commission's right to thoroughly look through things, vet it, and recommend or recommend denial. I think the first time might be too quick to
pull it back.
pull it back.
And I would also like to know if I'll a lot of land use items on here. I'd like to know if there's any ordinance between the last time it was on the website posted from where the public can see it and now. This one doesn't seem like it'll be much affected, but whether there are any ordinances affecting that decision. So I would move that we table it for one month.
I'll second.
I just have a question before we do.
Okay.
Do we want to add it to the agenda, or do we want to wait until, like, tabling it to the agenda, if they don't get it finished this next month, we're doing the same thing again, or do we want to wait?
No. What we're saying is, all this ordinance was the one changing we already went through and agreed that this was the changes that should be made. For our zoning administrator, code compliance officer, we've already indicated what we wanted and that this was acceptable to us. And so there is no need for this ordinance to be, it should have just gotten an up or down vote. There is no need for any fiddling with it by P and Z because we already said we were, this is the changes we wanted. Or that we agreed with, let's put it that way. Because we sat and went through all the codes. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put it on our agenda next month.
We need to have a motion too.
Oh, sorry. Well, he had a question and now we can answer. Now we can answer. Yeah. So we can take that for a vote. So all in favor of tabling this to next month? All right.
Aye.
The next section, item C. Ordinance amending section 1622F casita / guest house. I will take public comment before we go on and discuss this. So is there any public comment?
Just me again, Lee Ballard. I'm just gonna start by saying I'm confused. I have been trying to research what the impacts of amending so many definitions and sections of our code, and I'm not just talking about this one, but a bunch of them, could be. However, I've heard it said at the Virginstown Council meeting that the published land use ordinance, which is what the public is referred to in any code questions, has not been updated to include all of the staggering number of amendments made over the last few years. Researching each amendment appears to be the only way to find out what laws and codes we can rely on or should follow. Since only recent amendments are available to view at the public notice website, and those not final, simply consulting the town's land use ordinance is spectacularly time-consuming and complicated. Determining the best and worst case consequences of changes to the code is not easy to do with a complete and up-to-date version. It's close to impossible without it. I find this not to be very transparent. I'll assume that you and all of our other decision makers have complete versions of the current code to consult whenever you decide how a given definition change or language amendment will affect the intentions of the town's existing code. But I beg you to instruct whomever is responsible to update the code before making any more positive recommendations of changes to definitions or regulations in the code until you have the full and current document in hand or on screen.
Anyone else with any comments to make on the this casita ordinance and the proposed changes to this ordinance? Darlene?
I remember being at the planning and zoning for this, and at that, I believe that it was stated that these are changes that are instigated or compelled by state code. Is it true that state code says that a casita, for this definition, can be larger than the primary structure? I think that's a dangerous conclusion. And I'd like us to be certain that this was indeed required by the state.
Anybody else?
What I ask you not to change anything until everybody knows what's being changed. This ordinance and following. Thank you.
Planning on commenting on this, but I believe I was also at that planning and zoning meeting. This is Sean Emmett. And yes, this is the state law. And if you notice in your ordinance, just reminding everybody, because this was a long time ago that we recommended this on to you. The changes we're dealing with are the ones that are included within the dwelling, not a detached one. So keep that in mind. And yes, we reviewed the state law quite thoroughly on this. And all we're doing basically is changing the name from casita to accessory dwelling.
Anyone else? If there's no other comments, from the public, I will make 2 comments on this code section before moving on to other town council members who may have a comment on this. I'm going to respond to Darlene's question. This is the state code. I'm going to read you what the state code says about internal accessory dwelling units. In any area zoned primarily for residential use, the use of an internal accessory dwelling unit is a permitted use. And, except as provided in a couple of subsections below, a municipality may not establish any restrictions or requirements for the construction or use of one internal accessory dwelling unit within a primary dwelling, including a restriction governing the size of the internal accessory dwelling unit in relation to the primary dwelling unit. Although they do stress the word primary dwelling unit. So yes, it can be much bigger than the size of the primary dwelling unit. That's what the state code says. So meanwhile, that is the answer to Darlene's question. Now,
That's only for internal.
only for internal, not external.
Accessory is within the footprint of the original building.
Yes,
Not external, can't have something dwarf the size of the main building.
yes,
External
yes.
accessory building.
So I will make one comment that is my feeling on the matter. In the past 2 years, this casita ordinance has been changed 6 times. This is the 6th ordinance changing the casita wording. Given that the municipal code online is not up to date, how do we know? Number one, how can the public know that what this says is the current language and what we're changing this to? How do they know this is accurate? And the only way we town council members can know this is accurate is to go into the town hall, because our code is not up to date, is to go through this book and read ordinance after ordinance from where we stopped, where it stopped, with the updating, and to see if there's been, what the ordinances say. How do we even ourselves know this? Yes. What are you gonna say?
Why did we stop having our codified ordinances updated?
It doesn't stop, it's just a lot to do, and I'm backed up. I made a commitment to Paul several meetings ago, to be done by the end of the year.
And so I went through, but this is no,
No, you're fine.
yeah, okay. I went through, I have the list here that Darcy has a list where she keeps a list of every ordinance that has been passed, and she keeps track of when it's been updated and onto municipal code online. And so I went through this weekend and compared where it stopped, and it stopped in June of last year. And I just feel that before we vote on any ordinance, even my own, I have to admit, this even applies to my own ordinance, the one that has to do with code compliance officer, that until we know by looking at the municipal code online that it is up to date, that it is current, we should not be voting on any ordinance that's changing the language of our code online because we don't know that this is accurate. It's like, prove to me this is accurate. And why should anyone, even the town, even the public, because we have a public hearing, how is the public supposed to know, except for coming and going through the book, that what's been updated, what's the current status of the code? And that is my feeling on this. And especially because, as I said, when I went back through and I counted how many times the casita ordinance has been changed in the past few years, it's been 6 times. And I don't know that what this says is the current code is really the current code. That's my feeling on the matter. Others?
Well, I appreciate the comments on that, because it's a lot of work, and it's actually not part of the minister's job. I just kind of took it on to try and help take care of that, and it's somewhat technical, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, 2 years ago, we didn't have this stuff online. The public still had to come in and research if they wanted to find stuff out. And I don't see that being a little different, just because we've done something that's a little bit nicer for most of the new ordinances. If somebody wants to know, they can certainly come into town and do a demo. That's just like before. That's just
I take a little bit different view, and most of you know, based on my campaigning, that I believed in transparency and being open and making sure we have reliable information out to the public so they can make a decision. I don't see a rush in doing this, especially if we're going to have it updated soon. So I'm willing to make a motion to table this until next month. And hopefully then we'll have at least the Concita one up to date and then proceed at that time.
Just add, the problem with that argument is that we shouldn't pass any ordinances at all. Because nothing's up to date, so we shouldn't touch it.
And that's what I'm going to do with the rest of them based on the
I
state.
disagree with that.
Only-
Stuff.
Hold on, Sean, just a minute. I saw you.
No,
Only on,
I'm frugal.
Vulu, yes, only on ordinances that are changing the language on Vulu. For example, some of these ordinances that are coming up that is a zone change, that's not changing anything in Hulu, and there's,
We can proceed with
yeah,
this.
we can proceed with those types of ordinances, it's just the ones that are changing the language in Hulu, and that's why I said this even applies to my own ordinance about, code compliance officer, even though I did try to go through and see if anything had changed anywhere with zoning administrator anywhere in the code, it still applies.
I understand what you're saying. I just agree to disagree on that. I think that the code's available for people if they want to come in and see it, and we try to keep it updated as quickly as we can. But I know it's been a long time. It's more than just throwing that information in there. The documents have to be scanned and attached from originals.
Oh, yeah, I know,
Yeah,
you
it's a
not
big-
talking about it.
It's kind of a big job, and like I said, I took it on to try and help, but clearly I'm not getting it done, so I'll get it done by the end of the year, but I don't think we should be holding up ordinances, especially ones that are clearly split. It seems like it might be a little bit political in its nature, so that's just my opinion.
I move to table, this ordinance until next month.
I second. Take the vote. Paul,
Aye.
Jean?
No.
Jean, aye. Leroy,
No,
Misty,
End of the year, meaning you'll have this done for the end of December.
or at least by our January meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to let's finish our vote. I took it to mean.
To be
by
perfectly honest, I
January.
was gonna vote it down anyway. So if I vote to table, it gives an opportunity for discussion and possible change. So. we'll vote yes to table.
All right, Sean, I'll go ahead. I forgot to let you comment before we voted, but go ahead and comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Just further information on every ordinance that we've done, the way the process and procedure we've used is we take the very most current wording and we put that on there. Then we put proposed wording, then we write the ordinance. So you actually, the public does have view of what is current and also proposed and what the ordinance will look like when it's done. So they do have the information.
I voted no on the table because I've watched what P and Z has done on this. And I think that they're accurate with what
Thank you, Leroy. Okay, 3D is an ordinance with proposed amendments to definitions L through Z. Comments from the town council?
So, as the saying goes, what's the best way to eat an elephant? It's one piece at a time. So I think what I'd like to see is us take some of these and just not try to do it all at once, kind of work through them. And then we can do some this meeting, some next meeting, and get through them in a very quick time. It's kind of deciding how many you want to tackle.
Yeah, when the way this particular ordinance made its way through planning commission, it took a while to go through all the definitions. It wasn't just a 1 month thing. You know, they, as zoning administrator and attending the meetings, you know, it took several months to go through. And I can't, since we have only seen this just now, well, I know we've had it a couple months, but we have not discussed it at all. So I cannot see that we can, I just put this on for discussion and not vote, because I didn't see how we could go through L through Z and vote just that quick. So I agree with Paul that we need to take a bit at a time and then we can vote when we get through everything. However, this will go with the same thing. And I'll help you with the, what we were talking about here. Given you don't feel well, and it's a lot. We can share the user ID and password and get on there. And you showed me the other day how to do this, how this works. So we can work on it, on this.
I'm familiar with it. I'm happy.
And you're familiar too.
Saturday.
Or Mayor, I mean, we've got work sessions now, so we can tackle this
Yes,
on
that's
the
true.
12th and maybe get it ready for
Yes, the work sessions
the
will.
next
help you
meeting in
this faster.
January.
That's
So,
true.
But
so
we're here, so should we discuss a little something on, I mean, these, maybe a couple of items, or would you rather just wait?
I'd suggest you take it for a test vote again, because if we're not wanting to put anything in until everything's updated, because we may not have, according to this argument, we may not have the proper information.
Well, but it sounds like we can have that settled by the next meeting.
Right, but I'm saying, according to the arguments you've been given here tonight,
Yeah.
this verbiage that's in this ordinance may not be accurate with what the latest stuff is that was pulled from. That was the argument that was given. So if
Yes.
we voted yes on the last one, should be voting yes on this one too.
I move that we
I
do-
test drive it, it's just
Yeah,
table.
makes
It's not gonna do anything.
I move that we table this, the decision until the next regular meeting, and we deal also with it at the work session.
I'll second. Can we vote on this even though I just put it on for discussion and did not have motion?
We're
and vote?
tabling it this-
Well, I know we're tabling it, but I didn't put it on here for the.
Well, we don't have to motion to table it, we just.
I don't technically have the table, but if you want to move it, make sure that's on this agenda.
Okay,
I'm
all right.
motion to table and.
Okay.
take the vote, we'll do that.
okay. Paul,
Aye.
Jean,
No, just for practice sake.
okay, okay, Jean, yes, Leroy,
No, based on the same decision last time.
okay, and Misty,
I remember, yes, you know, because I feel like there's lots of things we need to discuss.
okay, so moving on to 4A. New business. This next ordinance is an ordinance amending the zoning map to rezone a piece of property that is on Highway 9 that's currently residential to commercial. And I wanted to ask on this ordinance, whoever prepared this ordinance, what is the meaning of that phrase and eliminating the current rural residential zone from VULA? That is in the title of this ordinance.
It's probably written by Cam on this one last week.
So I think we should just eliminate, draw a line through that. That is, that we're not eliminating anything from VULA. All we're doing is a zone change. And when you read the whereases, there's nothing in there about removing, oh, yes, there is. Number 2, under the ordinance.
When we vote on it, we can.
Yes,
open
I
it.
just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of these words being in this ordinance and it's like, that's strange.
If
We
you
can
interpret
amend
it in knowing how the ordinance should be written, they're saying just to remove the rural residential status and. make it
Of that
commercial.
particular part.
Right, and
That
they
would be-
just, I think they just rephrased it,
Yeah.
they
the way
phrased
that's
it
written, that
incorrectly,
would
so
take
like
it out.
Paul said, we should just modify it.
Correct, but I just wanted everybody aware I need to modify this. Okay.
I think that, I would agree, after the semicolon should be deleted onto the roll.
Everything after the semicolon should be what? Oh, just delete it? Okay,
Maybe just see number 2. Other side. It's just phrased where on the amendment to the Virgin Town official zoning map. The number two word.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Okay, and then you're talking about, and then the other part is up here.
In the title of the
In the
ordinance.
title.
Oh, yes, everything after and.
Right.
or-
After zone. After zone.
After zone.
Okay, so for those of you in the public that are here, we are talking about this piece of property that is going to be rezoned from rural residential to commercial, is the property that sits right next to the Balcony One restaurant. And there's a house there, and they have asked to rezone it from rural residential to commercial. That's the piece of property we're talking about. So, any discussion among the
You want
town?
to-
Are we ready for a
you
motion?
need to do public comment.
Public comment, okay.
There is a letter of,
Oh, yes, there is a
support in
letter of
there.
support. Yes, let me read that. Thank you. I remember seeing that earlier. Here is a letter from Jeffrey. What is Jeffrey's last name? Herrick, yes, Jeffrey Herrick. He lives behind, his property is right behind Balcony One. This email is in regards to the zone change request for the Long property, item D in the town council agenda. It's actually 4A. To whom it may concern, my name is Jeffrey Herrick, landowner of 102 North, 775 West, and then he has his parcel number. My lot basically shares a property corner with the Long property, currently under request to be changed to commercial zone. I want it to be known that I support the change from residential to commercial zoning for the Long property. It may be sufficient that I simply say that for the town council, I say that for the town council, but if you'd like to understand my opinion, you may read further. Firstly, the Longs were very generous in agreeing to a land swap in 2017 that allowed me to buy the 1 acre lot that I now own. Their generosity went further when they allowed me to trench onto their property to connect power at a box on their land border. The Longs have been kind to their neighbors. Secondly, it is my understanding that the residential egress easement is rendered unusable by a temperamental neighbor who built a garage on it. Thirdly, the commercial property immediately downstream of them very badly affects their residential privacy and soundscape. Balcony One has no privacy fence and a new patio seating area that hosts amplified music into their backyard. The Longs are good neighbors here in Virgin and a kind family. Their residential resale has been affected by the acts of thoughtless or unkind neighbors. It may even be that a switch to commercial property is the only opportunity for the Longs to sell and improve their housing situation. I believe we as a community owe it to them to allow this rezone to commercial property. Signed, Jeffrey Herrick. You have the map of this? No, that's just the zone change. Okay. So I think everybody knows which property after I described it. So any public comment? I'll take that as a no. So discussion among town council or a motion if you're ready to go for it.
You've got some things to say?
Okay.
No, I just have one comment.
Okay.
I think everybody knows Bates has held a broken record on some previous decisions. I think this should be commercial, but the problem I have with it is that we only have one size fits all for commercial lots. And consistent with some of my other votes, I'm going to end up voting no, knowing that this is likely to pass. But I think we need to create a limited commercial zone that will fit closer to urban residential areas nearby. And so I'm opposing this just because we don't have the right tools in the toolbox, knowing that this will be passed. And I intend to submit limited commercial zone for the planning board for their consideration shortly after the first of the year.
I need to
Oh, yes, if you may come up to the microphone, state your name for the record and then make your comment.
And
I'm sorry, your name is what?
Soraya
Okay, and your last name?
Anderson,
Anderson, okay?
I live with that residence with the Long family. And I just wanted to comment that I understand exactly what you're saying. However, we would like to move from the residence because of the noise and the privacy that's no longer there anymore. And without this rezoning, we wouldn't really be able to move. So just for our sake, for this one property, we would really greatly appreciate the opportunity to have it rezoned so we can find a new residence.
Before you walk away, do you know what size, how much acreage this piece of property is by any chance? 1 acre? Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that affect your decision, Paul?
Yeah, I'm gonna be consistent with my previous decisions.
Okay, I thought maybe the size of the lot might be.
It's not the size of the lot, it's the uses. Because somebody, it's a 1 acre lot, and somebody could come in and buy a neighbor lot and a neighbor lot, and now you have a 3 acre lot. Pretty soon you can buy some other land and you can put in a motel there.
Oh, that's.
So that's a problem I have, so I have to look at it for what the use is gonna be in there with the surrounding area. And so that's why I think we need limited commercial. That maybe doesn't have a hotel, they have some of the other uses.
Got it. Okay, I understand.
Paul, just a comment, if you're gonna make that, I suggest that we look closely at our highway resort zone and our commercial zone and see, distinguish the differences in uses and see where you think it, because some of the things that I'm hearing from it, it sounds to me like my first thought is, well, that's more highway resort, which is, even though it doesn't use the connotation commercial, it does allow for certain commercial uses.
Yeah, well, we can look at those uses and compare all three. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, and I'll send you a copy when I'm done.
Great.
Just leave. Am I all right to talk?
Yes, you are, Gene.
I'm very, very, very much in support of this change. I think our general plan reflects that commercial is to follow the corridor. I think one of the things that Paul was bringing up that is a good point is it isn't so much about joining properties, it's how deep they go into residential that I have a concern. Now, this doesn't affect this property, so it's a different argument in my mind, but for example, the one up here by the Virgin Post Office, that runs deep up into residential properties, and I can see that could be a problem if somebody purchases a bunch of land and then tries to do lot line adjustments or whatnot to get that. With that said, you can't just erase lines. This is one of the discussions we had in the past. If you buy a property that's commercial and then you pick up a rural residential property next to it and eliminate that line, it doesn't automatically make that other piece of property commercial. Even with the line gone, it's still rural residential.
But they can still apply.
They can, and anybody along that corridor, that's what we wrote into our general plan as the corridor. So I'm for that. Now, with that said, I do have some concerns that I expressed before, and I think were misunderstood by the Long family, and I want them to understand this because this is really important. DOT will not grant an entrance from the highway onto your property. So if you do anything on their commercial, they will close that off or cause you to pay to have improvements done on the road. This is directly from them. The problem is, to do the improvements necessary to pull into that property, you would have to bring that dip up, which is a very, very costly endeavor. And my understanding when I talked to Matt, it was upwards of $500,000 would be the repairs to bring that street up. The other option that you would have, of course, would be to work with your neighbors that connect to 775 to have access to the property. And I don't know how that plays out. That's all between property owners, but I can just tell you, the DOT has already said they will not grant an entrance to that property because of the drop on the dip, making things invisible. So just know that. I just think that it's important that you know that. I'm for the commercial change. I think it fits with what we want. I'm sorry, she has to tell you. Yes.
Yes, come up to the microphone. State your name again.
I just wanted to clarify what you had said. I'm just Anderson. And so you're just saying that we were to sell the property, and it is commercial zone, regardless of that, we would have to pay to have that entrance.
No.
That's
I
all.
think you'd have to disclose to a buyer.
Right.
The fact that that state road is a limited access road, and they won't let just anybody put a in and out driveway onto the state route. And so in this situation, because of your parcel's location to an existing road, it's likely that you're gonna have to probably make your primary access from your parcel up onto 775.
Yes. Yeah, they have an easement that go from 775, it kind of goes like that.
You could try to petition UDOT to do it, but what he's saying is UDOT may say, if we're gonna give it to you, you're gonna have to do these types of improvements, put in a turn lane or whatever, or a deceleration lane, bring the grade of the road up, which could be astronomically expensive.
With that said, though, I think, like Heath just said, if it was disclosed in your sale, I mean, it could be shady if you didn't disclose. There's no interest. If you disclose it, there may be somebody that says, oh, I don't care about the cost for the insurance, I'm gonna do it. But you just need to know, if you are gonna do a commercial project there, you can't access from SR9, they'll stop you from doing that without getting approvals. I've already spoken to them a long time ago about that, trying to figure out how we.
Right, and I've known that about that piece of property for years, that while you guys are using your driveway off of SR9 because of the easement being blocked, and UDOT has not really enforced that. When the zone, if it becomes commercial and somebody goes to build something there, some kind of commercial building,
Or even if it's
They're-
already there.
they're going to enforce it. And they are coming to town. They're gonna be starting in the next week with this access management plan. We're gonna start next month. And they're now here, ready to look at, oh, that's what I was gonna talk about, council codes. They are now ready to look at Virgin, and we're there looking at every entrance and exit off of SR9. Goes to town. Yes, Jim.
I'm Jennifer John, I'm from Florida, that was not our plan, we thought one would come up, but we had a reason why we need to continue to come up, because we got a easement and we were not able to sell our house, and we got the easement, so we thought we could continue to come up, because that would be easier for us to be able to sell the house, so that we come up, I know the highway is a problem, but the restaurant that's doing them haven't happened because we are not done there, and the restaurant will be really hard on our it's me, my husband, very hard to deal with that because it's been noisy and it's been very rude to us and we will not help her. And we even got the fence in the had no privacy. So we want to leave so bad, but we cannot afford to leave. So we thought, okay, well, because only one rather have a driveway back. And we need to see the commercial. So I understand that difficult to do, but it will help me to be able to move out because it's been really hard on me. So.
And that's understandable. We just want you to know that you're gonna have to disclose the problem with it when you sell it.
My realtor said they talked with someone who said that the original names. That's what the realtor told me because that's what the guy used. Once my house, but he said he was going to have to spend $100,000. That's what he told me.
But the nice thing is, if the person that's purchased the property is aware of it, and
That's
they're
their
willing to take
problem.
that risk. it
I
becomes
was
their
like,
problem.
that's all, I'm talking about, oh, you found that thing.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion by town council? Otherwise, we'll take a motion on this one.
Motion to approve ordinance 22 dash question mark. 22 dash.
It'll be,
It's not numbered yet, but
it'll be 13, I'm sure.
An ordinance amending the Virgin Town official zoning map by rezoning parcel B 22-1-21-2102 to commercial zone and striking. I didn't hear the full discussion on number 2. The town's
Everything
official
else
zoning
is-
map is hereby amended and restated, redrawn to reflect the zone change. Also taking it out of the title. To where it reads, an ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning the said lot, currently in residential zone to commercial zone. And then striking the remainder of that. And then part 2, the town's official zoning map is hereby amended and restated redrawn to reflect the zone change. Except for the section 1 above, striking the rest. That's it.
I'll second.
Jennifer, just know that I know how this vote's gonna go anyway, so I'm gonna be the only no vote, so it's gonna pass, just so you know that I knew that going in, so. And no,
Jean,
Yes.
Jean, yes. Leroy,
Yes.
Misty.
Yes.
The ordinance has been approved with a vote of 4-1. So this property is now rezoned commercial. All right. Next item on the agenda is 4B. An ordinance amending chapter 8.30B, the height and setbacks.
to be consistent with kicking the can down the road, I move to table this until the next meeting.
I second this. It is the same as what we've said with the other 2 ordinances, that until the municipal code online is updated, we don't know that this is actually accurate.
I'll voice my opinion maybe again. I know that this hasn't been changed up until now, and this has to do with just eliminating, like we did with the rest of the ordinances, the stories in the buildings, which really were relevant to the building. Height is what we're looking at, not number of stories in the house, which eliminates a split level where it's, whatever type of home a person wants to build, if they want to build it. So height is the concern for neighbors, and I feel like this should not be held. Should be moved forward.
Any other comments by town council members on this particular ordinance? I will. If there's no other comment from the town council, I'll open it up for comment by the public, if you have any comments.
Sorry. Okay, again, this has been quite a long time since this was on planning and zoning. I would think that same thing would apply, that things need to be done in a timely manner. This one specifically, if you look at the proposed wording, all we're marking out is an RZ zone and an RD. So,
What was our
She's
deed?
got the wrong ordinance.
you got the wrong one.
Yeah, I was confused with.
It's okay, because
It says the same
just
thing.
This is the one.
It doesn't follow. the-
As a point of order, I don't want to cut Sean off, but
No,
we had a motion to table, so we should have deal with that first before we decided to take further discussion on it.
Second point of order, we probably should take public debate before we.
Before we take
We
a
should
vote.
resolve the
Sorry.
motion first.
Sorry.
You can retract your motion if you would like to.
It's on
It's on the table for vote. So.
All right, so let's move forward with our vote. Jean? Jean, I, Leroy,
No,
Mr.
I'm going to say yes, but for the same reason of the very first one, I was going to vote this one down anyway. So this adds for discussion. I table it.
Okay, so, Lee, you were gonna stand up and cut you off. Do you still want to make your comment or no?
I think the ordinance is up there, so.
Yes. You can stand for the next one. That's the next one.
We're right.
I was right.
But you had the right
I
time.
was right.
Yes,
Oh.
according to the agenda.
For
I
the
was
record,
Now you were right.
Crystal was
Yeah, sure
right.
enough.
I was right.
Well, we
Let's
just
put that on
did
the
it.
record.
I saw the same thing. I saw zoning district height and setback, and like, that's about height. So.
Yeah, so we thought it was that one.
Yeah, I switched to it as well.
Okay, so next one, item 4C.
Do we need to make that point of order specifically for Crystal for the record on the? No, for not because you were right, that sounded bad, but just for the minutes, that we switched that around, just make it known that we switched them and voted on one that was after the other.
I had B up. And then you guys said it was the wrong one.
We
And
voted
you guys
on,
voted on C.
No, I
No, we
made the
voted on
motion with
B.
respect to
You did?
B.
We voted on B.
Okay,
okay, yeah,
you just thought I had the wrong one,
I voted on it.
but I didn't have the wrong one.
My vote was on B. I was looking at B here. I don't care what was on the screen.
Okay. Well, I have them correct in your folders too.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, item C. I guess we're about to have the same issue here. Item B is an ordinance amending chapter 8.26 maximum height of accessory building from 20 to 25 feet. So,
Before I make my motion, does anybody want to comment?
Better ask for public comments.
we will, he was just asking about, I was gonna get public comment.
He's gonna make a motion and then it's gonna be too late to.
It'd be too late
Yeah,
to
no,
take
I
public
understand, I
comments.
understand. He was asking if town council had any comments. they
Or
wanted.
if you want to take public comment before I make the motion.
I will take public comment. I was checking with town council first. Jeez, guys. Anybody from town council have a comment? I'm gonna take that as a no, so public comment.
I
Sean,
move.
hold on, Sean had a comment?
Another thing, planning and zoning's recommendation, I believe on this was to deny this one.
Yes, I know. I agree.
So I'm just making sure everybody heard that.
Yes, I was aware that their motion was to deny this.
I'll be consistent. I will move to table this until next month.
And your
Yeah, hasn't been seconded. Yeah,
I'll let you amend it.
nobody seconded, so yeah.
I'd like to amend it to include the remaining ordinances, because clearly we're not gonna talk about any of this stuff we're doing tonight, to table it until January.
So I'll take that
This
as
is-
a motion to amend.
This is the only one.
No, we
next.
got T next.
What?
He
I
wants
just
to
see
see
the end,
T.
that's what I'm saying, let's amend the C and save everybody some time.
There's something to discuss on D, but okay. There's no second for your,
What?
Call for a second.
okay, is there any second on Jean's amendment? to Paul's motion? Okay, all right, back to your motion.
So my motion was to table item C for next month.
I second. Paul,
Aye.
Jean,
No.
Jean, yes. Leroy?
No. We're setting a precedent here that we're telling TNC that we don't trust it.
It's not that.
Well, we're saying that we don't believe what they're publishing as accurate on what the ordinance is, and that is telling them we don't trust them. So I just want to make that, as I say, no.
Okay, okay. Misty,
In the same breath, say it again. I was going to put these down anyway, so me tabling it is opening up for discussion and maybe improvement for that we pass. That's why I'm voting to table. Not 'cause I don't trust that.
all right. So item C has been tabled also for the same reason as A and, as same reason as B. Oh. Yes,
Matt, is there to be public comment on that? Or did we already take that?
well, we had a public comment, and then we voted, you didn't raise your hand
On
to
that?
talk.
We haven't done D.
D is,
I
no,
don't have public comment.
we haven't got,
No, I actually wanted to make sort of a general comment about that, about what you guys have been thinking.
fine, go for it.
Lee Ballard, I just want to say that, that I don't think anybody's suggesting that the planning commission isn't putting the actual accurate latest thing on the ordinance. But all of the different parts of the land use code are interlocking. And so if you can't go through and search like all the zones that will be affected by a certain change or definition or whatever, and see how that would fit in with other things, then you don't really get a full picture. So it has nothing to do with the way that that's written on the paper. It has more to do with being able to access the entire mess. Sorry for calling it that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an important point that Paul and I both should have mentioned earlier when we were discussing this, that it isn't just the words that are in these ordinances, but the fact that a definition change here affects things over here in the ordinance, and if the ordinances are not all up to date, how do we know what the effect is of that change in the definition? Yes, I understand your point. We should have made that our point ourselves, but we did not. Okay, on to item D. This is the ordinance where I proposed this ordinance to Planning Commission in July, and it was set for public hearing in August. And I know I have an agenda for the September Planning Commission with it on there for a discussion. But when we look on the public notice website, I do not see that on that September agenda. But I know I have a copy of an agenda with it on it for discussion. But I have not gone back through all my records to try to find that particular agenda. But this has been at Planning Commission for August, September, October, November. They just talked about it at the December meeting for the first time since then. And pursuant to, well, this is the wrong code. I moved to a different code. It's 10-9A-302 subsection 4. A legislative body may consider a planning commission's failure to make a timely recommendation as a negative recommendation. And the time is running and there is a time limit on which this code can be addressed. So I am proposing that pursuant to 10-9A-3024, that we put this on our agenda for, well, the work meeting, to discuss this at the work meeting in January, and then have it for a vote at the January town council meeting.
Are you emotional?
No, I'm telling you guys, this is what I am, I'm not making a motion right now, I'm just bringing it up for discussion, that's my proposal.
Well, let's discuss. Before we start making motions, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I feel like there's some good stuff in this, but I feel like this is too broad and it doesn't, well, two things. I think it's unfair to say that the commission has dragged their feet on this when they've had stuff up to us for our agenda that have been there on the agenda again and again and again that we haven't done anything with. So why send stuff up from planning and zoning if we're not going to act on it in a timely manner? I think that the vote goes both ways on that. With that said, I feel like this is too broad reaching, number one, and number two, it eliminates some of the protections for the communities by eliminating everything without having a plan in place. I think we should deny this completely and start fresh and actually let them, give them something that they can work on that makes sense. That's my opinion.
What do you think is too broad?
You've stricken the entire chapter, like the entire chapter.
Yes,
So if you look in there, there's certain things like.
well, not that entire chapter, that
Okay,
section.
the
of
entire
chapter.
section, is short. But look at things like application approval process. So STRs still exist, even if they're not in 5-acre subdivisions or things like this, but a lot of our rules and regulations fall under this chapter. I think it needs to be taken a piece at a time. I think it's too broad to just delete the whole thing without having a backup in place. It's kind of the same thing we're talking about. I think there's too much here that we're trying to remove without having something different in place. I'm fine with the moratorium like I discussed with you before, but I think this is too broad. That's just my.
And that's fine if you think it's too broad, but we've never had an opportunity to talk about it because it's been languishing for 5 months.
So I'd like to build on that, then I discussed this with you before. I agree with Jean, right, it's too broad. I like the idea of a cap, because I love that we put it in new subdivisions, because it did solve the needs at the problem at the time, that we wanted to capture the short-term rentals and keep them limited. However, I think if we put a cap on them, which is done in many communities around us, that solves a lot of the problem. Because I feel like if we put a number, it ends it. People can also open up a list and get on a waiting list to get on it. If somebody sells their home and it becomes a residential home instead of a short-term rental, they can get that, they can bump from the next person in line can become a short-term rental. That's my idea of it.
I'm gonna build on one more thing, so. We're stating that the L through Z just has too much. We're stating that the things that they're doing, there's just too much to go, we need to dig into this more and more. Why would this be any different that it takes them months to look at when you deleted an entire chapter? I think that we need to send it back to them in pieces that are actually manageable and ask them to work on those sections. That's their job. That's their job as a body, not to just because they denied this back up to us.
They could have done that for the past 5 months, and they've done nothing. Until last week.
And again, unfair because we haven't done anything with the ordinances that they have set up. So what's the point? So we should be acting on just as fast before we go throwing stones. I feel like this is too broad. I think we should just dump it and start fresh and ask them to have a manageable piece of it. Like a moratorium that we discussed, or a cap for X number of years, or a
So
number, et cetera.
Heath, does the moratorium have to go to planning commission? That's something town council can vote on their own, correct? Yeah, does not required to go to planning commission. Okay. Yes,
When it's time for budget time.
okay. I'll remember, but you might have to wait that.
I know, that's why I was doing it.
Okay.
Chief, did you want to open this to discussion? Because I understand where we're going with the whole we need to review everything, but this is one that we have not discussed.
We have not discussed
This
it
has
at
not been
all
discussed,
because
it's been-
it has not been, moved to us so that we can discuss it.
Correct, so.
And so what my motion, what I am proposing is that we pull it to town council so that we can discuss it. And we can discuss it at our work meeting next month, and we can put it for a vote, and if it's, by pulling it from planning commission, we are taking this as a denial. There as a recommendation for denial, because the code section said that failure to move in a timely manner can be assumed to be a negative recommendation. In other words, a recommendation to deny this thing.
Did they move this up to us this morning?
No,
It's still sitting in there.
Yes. Yes,
It's still-
and there's a
it's
100, there
position.
is a time limit on which these things need to be moved. And we are approaching the time limit. And so all I'm saying is bring it to town council. If it gets denied by town council, that's fine. I just want it to come to a vote.
I feel like we've set them up to fail by giving them this much. That's all I'm saying. I don't find it to be personally our place to give them something that's unmanageable, and then when they don't get to it in the timely fashion of 100 days, we say, oh, because they didn't do it, we're gonna take it away from them and figure it out ourselves. I think we should cut it down to manageable size and say, that's what I'm going to vote for. And I'll let Paul make his motion.
Oh, we've got public comment. Public comment. Okay, Bronwyn.
So a couple things on this. First of all, planning and zoning has drugged their feet. That's real. It's also too much for planning and zoning to handle. That's real too. It's a very complicated issue, and what's happening while planning and zoning struggles, and I'm working on this personally, so I know, to get it right and to have it so it matches throughout our ordinances and to have it be something we can all agree on. We're sending through permits and, you know, subdivisions and things that are causing all kinds of trouble in our town. They're causing conflict, they're causing potential lawsuits, it's causing a lot of trouble. So the truth is, we need to somehow stop things from, you know, being subject to all this muddy water. So moratorium is something that planning and zoning commission, other than Sean, we all, there was some consensus on that. Like, what we really need to do is have a moratorium. The meeting was so long and drawn out that we, at the end, we didn't get to the moratorium. And Cameron was gonna come here tonight and tell all of you, and you can check the record on this, but he said he would be here tonight to tell all of you that what planning and zoning is talking about is some kind of moratorium on short-term rentals, so that we have time to write an ordinance that adequately addresses the complexity of this section.
Okay.
So moratorium is what P and Z would like. You guys can pull that off. I don't know the legal ramifications, but that is what we would recommend. Except for Sean, but we doesn't count tonight.
Yes, Lee.
I wonder if it's possible to, as you possibly table what the whole ordinance says, if you could also include a moratorium, on applications for the overrism. I wondered if Keith might be able to answer that.
What's the question? You sorry.
If they decide to kick the can down the road on this SPR overlay zone, can they at the same time declare a moratorium on new applications until they get it figured out?
I'm just trying to pull up, that's what I was kind of not listening, trying to pull up the section on more terms, so I can advise council.
Okay, while you're doing that, then I'll make some other comments. The STR overlay intensifies the impacts on residential land, and I don't think that's really the thing the town needs to be doing right now. We don't know, but should calculate exactly how many single-family water hookups will remain of the 300 or so unclaimed in our contract with the Conservancy District once all the projects that have been approved are completed. We don't know, but should study whether any additional septic systems can be handled here without contaminating our groundwater. And continue to add up higher impact uses to parcels currently intended for single family homes. Could strain whatever resources we have left. When the town's figured out how to come up with funds that will be required to join the water pool and to pay for and install a public sewer system, higher impact uses might make sense. But in the meantime, I think residential growth should remain at a rate of 1 single family dwelling per acre.
Did you pull it up, Keith? I have it here. if you-
What's the code? Because I've been, I
It's-
can't find it either.
10-98-504.
Utah State Code, correct?
Yeah,
Utah.
10-9-8-5.
Bronwyn,
Yes,
could I ask for clarification of the recommendation you were talking about?
I can do that.
What, was it a recommendation for a moratorium on all short-term rentals or just for applications for? the-
It was on short-term rentals, and so that was me looking at any applications, accepting any applications, anything, just for the more
Just
short-term
general
rentals. period.
Short-term rental,
Yeah, so there would be no overlay, anything.
yeah, period.
That was-
So you're suggesting, I want to clarify,
Yes,
those that have already put in the work and submitted an application, this stops them now.
okay, a moratorium on any new.
Okay, that's what I want.
Thank you. So that means any new requests, any new, anything. So I don't feel like we can. And, but here was another point of debate, which the town council needs to think about. There are people that have started their application and have gone through to the point where they've submitted plats. Okay, those are the people that would be included in having started already. Those who just threw things in last time, they would have to cover that, like, people that hadn't submitted their preliminary plat or their final plat or their CCNRs. People that had not submitted anything, that would not be included, so they couldn't have just thrown in, a bid with none of the, they weren't really engaged in the process, so we don't wanna do anything unfair to people who've already engaged in the process in the correct order and done their steps and paid their money. People who have not participated in the correct steps and have made no effort, that would not count. That would be part of the moratorium. Held in moratorium perhaps.
Do you
Did you
understand
understand
the
that?
narrative? It says in the ordinance that the narrative is submitted before anything else, so if they submitted a narrative.
Okay,
you're saying they're
in some
cutting
places
this
it
off too?
says that, in other places it says preliminary plats. That discrepancy is exactly the reason we need a moratorium. That's why we can't make a decision based on one or the other. Now, the people that have already paid their money and gone to final plat or done everything that we said that they could do except, built it, if they've done enough of the steps that they've covered all their bases, that's different. But we cannot make a decision on one or the other or on a contradictory parts of the code. That's the whole problem. We're gonna get sued and it's not fair to people.
So I don't understand what you're talking about.
What I do, I can tell you.
Okay, I know there's this thing in here about when you submit a narrative. I know that.
Look at your code. Just look at
Yes.
it. You got cost-
Tell me
it's all
which
over
section.
there.
Tell me which section.
But the narrative is not the basis that we have made a decision on in planning and zoning for the overlay zone at any other time. That's something we've never used, and we would not consider that a legitimate step for that reason. No one else has used that process.
I appreciate that, but it's still in code that says the narrative indicates.
Well, then our
that
choice
this-
is to say no one gets it.
Or you say those who have submitted the narrative at this
But-
point. in
but
time
that-
have right.
But there was debate in planning and zoning that just wasn't adequate. We didn't understand what to do with that or how to approach it. So we couldn't address that, those ones. So those can't count.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay, where was the thing that you were concerned about with the preliminary plat? You mentioned that.
That's 3A. All I'm
I'm
saying
on
is,
that 3A.
okay, an applicant shall submit the concept plan, a narrative indicating yes, you're over.
Mhm.
So let's say a person comes in and says, look, I want to do an overlay zone on this piece of land that I'm going to be working on. Does that meet the requirement to say, I've got a concept chart, I'm working on this, or we say, nope, you did it. You didn't come in with an actual concept plan or your preliminary plats, so we're going to deny that.
Well, you can't just come in and say, I want
It has
short-term.
to be given in connection with the new subdivision.
Correct.
So if you
And there's
don't go
no-
all the way through the subdivision approval process, how can you get the zone?
Right, but what I'm saying is, if we're putting a moratorium, and somebody has indicated, I'm doing a subdivision and I want to do this,
They have to have indicated it's more than
I'm
on the
asking
narrative.
he.
Oh, my
Sorry.
question, my question is, I drafted it, and I know exactly why I put those in, so that there was several places along the process where the city, when they're making decisions and evaluating things, it needs to be disclosed and upfront to them, what the intent of the subdivision is going to be, if it's going to be an STR overlay zoning on that subdivision, they need to disclose it up front when they give their conceptual. Because we have to look at things like sizing of utilities, we have to look at parking, off-street parking, those types of things, when we're looking at layout of subdivision. But it is very clearly was drafted as being a zone like any other zone. Whether we call it an overlay zone or it's a zone, it's a legislative function, I do agree. When Lee's comment about that, and so I would say people have no vesting and no rights until they have filed an application for a zone change.
But what if they haven't even completed paperwork for a subdivision? They've just come in and said, I want a zone change and I'm going to sell the land.
I agree with that, but if they have applied for a zone change to SDR prior, and one of the problems that we need to appreciate too is the pending ordinance doctrine in Utah, which is Western Land Equities versus Logan and all the cases that have come after. The pending ordinance doctrine says that if you have an ordinance that you are considering changing to, and it is in writing, and it is started through the process, any application that you get after that, you can make them comply with the pending ordinance. That's what it says. Okay, so it doesn't say that you can, until it's adopted, you can come and be grandfathered under the old ordinance. That's not what the pending ordinance doctrine Utah says.
So let me just give a scenario to see if I'm right. If we continue this, and this is voted in, Ryan Anderson's subdivision would not be eligible because this was started after he came back to request that. You
He's
see the risk? I
observation
mean,
states,
Right.
that's a difference.
So
It's not though, because he has put in we required him to now ask for that zone change, and this was started prior to. So now people that were promised it, multiple, will be told,
Okay, so-
nope, that's my concern.
I see that.
who's speaking? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so my only thing I wanted to add then was that planning and zoning commission is working on, there's a written, beginnings of a written ordinance for this. So as to what Keith said, there is an ordinance being drawn up right now that's in process, and it's been made, it's on the record for two meetings. It is in process. So anything that would have come through, particularly in the last meeting, would mean, as he said, it wouldn't be eligible. It would be considered with an ordinance when it's finished, right?
My understanding is there is a draft of an ordinance that has been requested and come to the planning commission in August. Planning commission had a public hearing on it. Didn't take action, took it under consideration and possible modification. And then they've continued to work in some variation of form. Okay, unless there is going to be, if the modification, how do I say this? If the modifications are going to be something other than striking the entire concept of ST or overlay, because that's really what the ordinance does, then I don't know if we've got that. Do we have that modification? We have it in writing. And so I think applicants at this point in time would be, and even if the planning commission made a recommendation of it or an alternate draft, when it ultimately comes to the council, you can make a decision saying with the original draft or modification. Sorry if I'm getting too academic, but it's still pending. and everyone has to be done. We can apply the pending ordinance doctrine to any application. Now, it also says in some of these cases that have come after Logan versus, or Westland Equities versus Logan, is that the governing body, the legislative body can consider all, can take into consideration all factors in determining whether they invoke the pending ordinance doctrine or not. And I would say something like observation of states might be something where, as a council, you may want to look at it and say, they have sufficiently proceeded through the process far enough that although they may not have applied for a zone change yet, they have clearly went and thought they had, at least some people thought that they had the zoning in place, because there's a report.
So case by case basis.
Well, no. Just observation of states to me is a completely separate case. It does not fall in.
Gene, I would take the position, if the city's going to invoke the pending ordinance doctrine and say, anybody who hasn't applied for a zone change, you can continue, but you're going to be subject to the outcome of this pending ordinance. Okay, that's what it is. And it applies to everybody. We have to apply that uniformly to everyone, except for if we want to find some sort of exceptional circumstance where we can accept out that. And that's what this case law is. It's really nuanced, but you can do it. And so you would invoke it and you would apply it to everybody, but you could make a special consideration for certain people or for certain circumstances, I guess.
Okay, so.
And we've got a circumstance with observation states, which is,
Right.
let's just say, adults.
Okay, so, but, and I understand, I'm with you. Now I just want to ask this question. We have 3 subdivisions that have gone through all the stuff, but this was started beforehand, right? We've got the one up at the top of the hill with Jeff Lee, we've got the one by the Staples, and we've got the one over by the water tower. They've gone through that whole process, and if this passes, that's gonna dump on them and say, nope, you don't get it. That's
I
why.
thought Staples, we already gave them the reasons.
But
Yes,
this was started
Staples.
beforehand.
I know, but we didn't, we haven't.
We
invoked
did not
any ordinance
invoke that
doctrine yet.
because
Okay,
I
what
brought
about
it
the other
up.
two?
No, I brought it up at Staples hearing when we were,
But the council intention, notwithstanding the fact you brought and discussed it, the council voted affirmatively to approve it, so they chose not to invoke pending ordinance doctrine.
but that was because when we talked about it, you specifically brought up the closeness of when I brought up that ordinance to their application, and that it could potentially look like I was trying to stop their application. And so that's why it went through.
So another
That could have
question,
been the reason. I pointed that out as some factor that we may want to consider.
I have more questions then. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm informed on this well, and here's why. I hate jumping to conclusions on stuff. We're all panicking about short-term rentals, and we really don't have any subdivisions or even existing currently that are actually working. So we have no idea the impact they're gonna have on town. There's lots of scarcity, oh, it's gonna ruin our town. You don't know that. There's no proof of that. We don't have anything existing. So with that said, what kind of guarantees can we give to those who have gone through the process? If we do a moratorium, can we vote on a moratorium right now? Is that something you can do?
Yeah.
No?
We can't.
He just said. we
But he
can't.
just said we can.
We can't vote on moratorium, it's not on the agenda without public comment. I think we'd have to notice it up for next month, or hold an emergency meeting.
I don't know if it says that you have to properly notice it.
Isn't it like any other agenda item?
Let's see
Well,
what it
it doesn't
says
say that, though. It says the municipal legislative body may,
without.
without prior consideration of or recommendation from the planning commission, enact an ordinance establishing a temporary land use regulation for any part or all of the area within the municipality, if the legislative body makes a finding of compelling and countervailing public interest, or the area is unregulated.
So that means we can make so without any notice to the public or opinion on the agenda, do a moratorium at any time. I think you have to read that in
Yeah.
If
connection
there's
with the
a
statute.
compelling or countervailing
No,
Interest?
No, Paul, I know Springdale put in a 6-month moratorium earlier this year and there was no notice.
no,
I
not
know.
at all.
Is a moratorium limited to 6 months?
It
Yes,
is, it is. That's the other thing I was gonna read if you wanted to know that. I can't see 6 months in duration. There's only very limited circumstances, I don't know, any that would apply to the city where you could renew that for an additional 6 months. So you better get your ducks in a row during the next 30 days.
I think that would give us time to work on stuff. So I'm gonna motion that we put a moratorium on short-term rental subdivisions with the exceptions of the 4 that have begun the process in earnest. That's my motion. And I'm speaking specifically of the one on the other side of the tower, Jeff Staples, Jeff Lee, and Ryan Anderson.
well, Jeff Staples has already been approved. He's done-
Knock
that didn't
Staples off,
apply.
3.
I'm
I keep forgetting.
gonna backtrack just a little bit. You're enacting an ordinance, okay? We don't have the body of an ordinance here for the public to see or
Paul
notice.
said.
So then you gotta notice.
And my point is, I think that if we do feel like this is a very important thing, then maybe we ought to know a special meeting for a day or 2 from now, where we can give 24 hours advance notice. We can have a hard copy of moratorium ordinance in place. I think that would probably be the cleanest way. I don't, because it's saying an ordinance. that it has to
Okay.
be an ordinance.
Now, before we,
So I'll get you on my motion.
I mean, I wished it was a little more clear, but.
That's fine.
as I'm
That's why I was
sitting here
asking the
looking at
questions.
but I want to be clear. I want to clarify this one issue because Jean wants all the people who filed paperwork for this to be not subject to the moratorium. And my opinion is that they are not in the proper place within the, and I'm not talking about you. That my opinion is that they are not within the proper place where they should have even requested short-term rental overlay zone.
I agree with that.
I know you
Three
do.
places, the narrative right at the beginning.
Where's the
Your
narrative?
concept
I
plan.
haven't seen a
It all
narrative.
has to be as a
concept
verbal.
plan.
All it has to be is a verbal narrative.
You want a preliminary plat that has a general plat note on it that says that this.
There's no preliminary plat.
No concepts.
They're just, all they are, someone has come in and asked for a zone change. That's it.
And no subdivision.
No,
Just.
That's like getting this, the proverbial getting the cart before the horse.
and then there's someone else who
You
has
gotta have the
said,
cart and the horse.
who has, I have not seen the preliminary plan, the preliminary plat. They have continued from meeting to meeting to meeting, but I have never seen a preliminary plat. Is there a preliminary plat?
The narrative is done in the concept plan, not preliminary plan.
This, in my opinion, this, somebody can, this is my concern, is that somebody can apply for a short-term rental overlay zone and then drop the whole process and they've got the zone change.
I'm
It's like,
agreeing.
no,
I don't have any problem with that. I
Well,
agree.
no, but one condition, Paul's got his hand up, which is, one condition of that zone change being granted is that they actually have a final plat approved and it has to be approved. And I would suggest that it be approved and recorded within no more than 12 months or 6 months, or whatever you guys want to put on that, so that it doesn't sit out there in perpetuity. Because the concept behind this has to be, this is only given in the circumstance of a new subdivision. You can't go out and say, hey, my 1 acre or my 5 acre parcel, I just couldn't get it rezoned, and then I may or may not subdivide it, and I'll
Okay.
put one.
okay. Brian, one question for you,
Yes.
please come up here. Okay, you said the Cameron was gonna come tonight and tell everybody what was the recommendation of the planning commission. Would you restate that recommendation again?
Okay, so
This is important.
Cameron
He,
said he would come to this meeting and he would recommend as head of the planning and zoning chairman, or whatever he is, main guy, in charge of planning and zoning, that he would come here and recommend that there be a moratorium placed on short-term rental overlay zone
just on the short-term rental overlay zone.
and
because
short-term
other
and short-term rentals.
Okay, because earlier you said short-term rentals.
Correct.
And so his plan is
So
a
it's
moratorium
short-term rental.
only on short-term rental overlay zone, not short-term rentals
Okay.
everywhere. Just a minute, Sean, I'll get to you.
That's not what I told him, that's not what I heard.
She said short-term rentals. He
Yeah.
says
So
short-term rental overlay zone.
The concept that we discussed was that both, it would, well, the moratorium would encompass both. So no new short-term rentals, no short-term overlay, zone applications, approvals, nothing until we sort out the language in the ordinances to make it so things can go through properly.
So currently, we don't,
But that's the only way to get short-term rentals in new subdivisions, correct?
yeah, currently, there's a short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
When I drafted this the short-term rental component of this ordinance several years ago, I had, the first section was dealing with short-term rentals within the existing part of town, the onesie, twosies. And we looked at putting caps, we looked at putting spacing, so you didn't have side by side, all sorts of different things. And ultimately, council didn't approve it. All that they would approve short-term rentals to occur was in new subdivisions, new developments. But they did say
Residential.
highway resort,
As well.
excuse me, highway resort. Other than that, they're not allowed within town. They did say that anywhere within town, any zone within town, you can do residential hosting facilities. So they basically adopted the RHF portion of it, and they only adopted part of the short-term rental portion of it, which was just the new development section. So to say we need to put a moratorium on something that's already prohibited, I guess you could say we're putting a moratorium on short-term rentals in the highway resort zone and the short-term rental overlay.
Except I think, don't they now allow short-term rentals in commercial zone?
commercial
Wasn't
too.
that amended to include short-term
But
rentals?
is it
Yeah.
possible? to
Well, and they were
break
trying to
out and
say that it- Someone
That's
was
all.
trying to say that can be added to rural residential zone too, so it's out of control, like that was a premise. I know it can't, but something was passed of planning and zoning under that premise, which is why I said we have to have a moratorium because we are no longer adhering to our own codes.
I'm sorry, but wherever you heard that, that's incorrect. It's
Talk to
5 acre
Cal.
subdivisions, it's commercial and highway resort.
Yeah.
And it is conditional currently conditional in commercial.
Is
Okay,
that how we're dealing with it? Just conditional?
Just in commercial, highway resort is permitted in 5 acre subdivisions. That's exactly like it was when the ordinance was passed. The problem is we've got an influx of people that are requesting that. Which I agree is a concern, but at the same time, I'm not the one that goes all panicky because something even hasn't happened yet.
Not panicking, we're just trying to get it organized so there's no more misunderstandings, no more potential lawsuits, no more illegal things, just consistency, because what we really want, and I think we can feel it in this meeting tonight, this is a hot issue because it affects a lot of people, it gets people mad. And if we get the ordinances correct and the wording right and do it well, then all this contention can go away in our town, and that's what I want.
I am aware of your head. Sorry. Okay. Yes, and then Pat wants to say something too.
I just have a point of clarification. Would this moratorium also apply to any exceptions or conditional uses on commercial short-term rentals?
You could craft a moratorium any way you want. You could carve out exceptions in the moratorium, or you could make it blanket across it.
That's what he and I were discussing, because your first statement was moratorium on short-term rental overlay zone. And I was like, well, I think the planning commission had a larger concept. Yes, Pat.
My name is Pat Galvez. First of all, Mr. Garati, you said something about people getting panic. And things haven't happened yet. I've been to this last month meeting and the last two P and Z meetings. And as Bronwyn said, there are developers worried, talking about their plans. And yes, they haven't built yet, but they're getting angry. And it's come up at the P and Z. Well, we have to be careful with this. We can get sued as a town. So let's start drawing the line somewhere. I'm not panicky. I just want to turn my house water on in 15 years and have water come out of it. Okay, and these people might build all these developments around here, and they're gonna get them all built, and there's not gonna be any water in the shower and the toilets or the sinks. So, the notes up here, Virgin Town is overrun with vacation rentals. There's a lot going on here. It came up at the P and Z, whatever, a week ago. There's more visitors in this town than there are residents, and it's still growing. We need to slow it down. We need to get things under control. We need to take care of the residents. And if the rest of the county is stopping our temporary moratoriums and developers are flocking here, because this is where they can get approval, where they can find loopholes or get permissions or verbal permissions, it's growing and it's building, and we're in a tough spot now. I don't want to be any of you in this room. I don't want to be on the P and Z. Okay, you got a hard case in front of you, handed to you from what's been happening the last 2 years. And we need to slow it down, whatever you call it, an overlay, vacation rental, short-term rental, who knows? It's just getting to be too much of it here. Thank you, and happy holidays.
I want to comment. I think Pat hit on the head. It is about slowing it down. But for me, what I'm looking at is we have really, if we take out state, we've got multiple people that have been basically told, yeah, you're eligible for this, you have this one, including the gas station. They're working towards that goal, and now we put a moratorium and say, all right, you gotta cease construction. That's the kind of stuff that drives a lawsuit. Now, as far as what Pat was saying, I do want to address that. Yes, we have 300 something hookups left. When that ends, we go on pooling agreement. I've spoken with the commissioners many times about this. They will not stop people from moving in or allowing people to move in. We do not run out of water. It's illegal. You can't say, oh, we're not going to allow anybody to move here. That was one of their big things. They said, hey, we're not going to do that. The question is, can you slow it? And I'm all for slowing. I have no problem with the moratorium, but I'm saying I don't think that it's in the town's best interest to cut off people that are well into the process. Now, I understand there's been a few people that have come in the last few weeks and they're throwing stuff. This is what Cameron's telling me. I haven't seen any of it. They're throwing in, hey, I want to have a short-term subdivision some 20 years in the future or something, and they're trying to get that over. I have no problem saying, nope, you don't have any plans in place, but I do have a problem stating to those who've already started the process and are well into it, now we're going to put a moratorium. I think a moratorium is great because it gives us time to look at all this stuff. I also don't think it's wise to do it in the areas where it's permitted. I live in a highway resort zone and I have that right permitted. Why would you stop me if I'm in that zone and have that right? I can think of one commercial STR that's going in, and I don't know any short-term rental in the highway resort zone with the exception of the little piece of property that's Doug Spindler had, that they're wanting to do a short-term rental in that building. The rest of the highway resort zone isn't even being touched, so why are we panicking about them?
Well,
Focus
this-
on the 5-acre subdivision.
Okay, but here is where you and I have a disagreement, and Misty and I have talked about this, that the way short-term rental is defined in our code, a short-term rental is part of a subdivision. If it's in the highway resort zone, who cares if it's highway resort zone, it still has to be part of a subdivision, correct?
That's not true.
That is how we can, that is how we see it.
We were reading it that way in the ordinance. So
So I'd ask Heath that. Heath, that was written specifically for 5-acre subdivisions, correct? Not individual units.
now,
I know, short-term rent, but we define a short-term rental
it is a
as a
definition.
residential home. And it is defined as being part of a subdivision.
But if you're
That's the overlay.
That's the overlay.
So, but we still say it does, let's just put it, let's ask this then, for highway resort zone, does that allow somebody to come in with 2 acres in the highway resort zone and put 30 short-term rentals on there? And it's 2 acres of land? No? What do they get?
They get whatever the septic wastewater study and.
If it's 2, let's say it's 2 acres. And if we, and our
Put two.
2 short-term rentals. Yeah. I'm saying that's what they're limited to.
Yeah.
Yeah, not 10, not 20, 2, 1 per acre.
My argument was
I'm
more
not even sure
toward
about that.
anything outside of the highways resort zone when we were talking.
Okay.
My argument was more toward any of these new subdivisions that are coming.
Oh, I
in.
know that.
That's where my argument was, because there's a couple that have put the cart before the horse, these ways. And I'm trying not to get into this.
Okay,
because I live close to one of them, and I have no problem. If I can't change if you're gonna do something to your property, I should have bought it if I don't want you to do it. So that's my stance. I want that said, because I don't want Alan Teresa to think I'm being hard knocks, but I have to be in this moment. You can't put the cart before the horse and ask for an overlay for something that you don't have a subdivision for. That is what a short-term overlay is. That's where I was going with that, is that it's
Okay.
defined for a 5 acre property that can be subdivided. But you can't apply for it until you have that subdivision started.
And Heath, I want to challenge what you're saying too, only because when I moved here, that section of road that I live up on, divided 101, that they had come and requested people to change the highway resort zone because they're trying to put that stuff. There's not one of those homes up there that has a single short-term rental. They either have 2, 3, 4, there's multiple. I think what they were saying, what I've always used is,
They have multiple.
yeah, I think that we have always traditionally, at least since I've been in it, understood it from the guy who was in there before me, was that is driven by the fire department and the health department. They come in and say your sewer's not big enough to fit that on here. You have to have, the fire department actually says you can have up to 10 before it cuts that off. Anyway, I'm just saying, in the highway resort zone, I think it's a little bit different for an individual living on there if you have the sewer size and everything else. You've got the water.
Is that in one of the provisions that hasn't made it online?
It's
I don't
not
see
in one of
the-
the provisions, but there's nothing prohibited. That's just traditional.
Oh, I see, it's not prohibited, it's why you say it's permitted.
No,
Okay,
I'm not saying it's
Bronwyn
permitted, I'm
has
just saying it's tradition. That's what.
Okay, Bronwyn has something she wants to say.
So just to clarify, it's 9 o'clock, and if
Yes.
we're gonna do a moratorium, we need to get to it, so let me just clarify for just 1 second. So the reason it's important right now, to put a moratorium on STRs and the short-term rental overlay zone is because right now, one of the ordinances that we recommended to you that has not been acted on yet, has the definition of STRs in it, okay? So that there needs to be a moratorium on the STRs because our definition is right now in your hands, waiting to be acted on, okay? And then the short-term rental zone needs to have the moratorium so that we don't have any more of this confusing process that's putting conflict and legal ramifications that are problematic in our path. So those are the two reasons the language needs to include STRs and STR overlay zone. According to the ordinance, we recommended those.
The subdivisions that were already.
Oh, and in our recommendation, I don't believe that's not right. Anyway, so it's the STR and the STR overlay zone. And with in mind what Heath said, that if you propose a moratorium, this body then has the ability to make a recommendation on those individual, the ones that you're worried about, the 3 subdivisions. You guys will have the power to either have it applied to the new or the old ordinance. So you're not cutting anything off. You're just stopping everything so that it can get organized. He just told you, as a body, you still have the ability to put them through based on the work that they had done.
Again, on the STR, are we seeing a massive influx of people in the highway resort zone in the STRs? Why are we even considering doing this stuff? That's my question. I remember a few years ago when we lowered the house size to 250 feet to say, this is what the international building code, and we had people come up here saying, our town's gonna be overrun with tiny homes. And there is to this date, in my 0 tiny homes have been put in on a 1 acre lot. I'm saying it's the same thing. The STR zone or the STR permitted use in that highway resort zone is not a problem. I'm happy to work on the overlay zone and say we want to put a moratorium, but I'm not willing to expand it to commercial and highway resort zone.
Lee had something she wanted to say before we go back to town. Is that okay? No? Okay, wait.
Oh,
Okay.
Yes, no? Lee Ballard. So I'm a little confused if the Planning Commission has had an ordinance on the table suggesting that there be no more STR
Overlay zone.
overlay zone. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right.
They've had it since August. So anybody obviously who applied for that zone must realize that they're on shaky ground. I mean, especially when you add the fact that a rezone is a totally discretionary decision. So you can never guarantee that you're gonna get your rezone the way you could guarantee you'd get your conditional use permit if it was. So I'm
Okay.
confused.
All right, Paul.
I'm- I have some confusion there, HRZ permitted use of the short-term rental, but I'll deal with that offline right now. So I just don't see that goal. Where do we want to go? Do we want to proceed to a moratorium? And if so, when do we want to do it?
Well, Heath was suggesting that we do it this week. So we do it within the next few days, that we could, draw a draft ordinance and put it up.
It gives us time, we need
Right.
time, because we
Right.
can't just throw it out there willy-nilly, I mean, there's so many different issues.
Well, I had hoped that this one that I had proposed would come to us by now, we would have passed time.
But
But this, now we can move
Can I just
on.
ask this, is there any, nobody's gonna get a plat and a short-term overlay zone and everything done before January 1st? We really need to do this right before Christmas. I mean, there's a lot going on in our lives right now.
Well, I
I don't think it's that panicky.
think half of our problems we need to review actual applications and actual situations that have already come in. And
But that
check
ain't gonna
those out
change between
first,
now
that's not, we can't do that in a week. We
I'm
can't
just
do
saying,
I
that.
would agree.
I just said, let's do it after the first.
Let's do it now.
What's your
I'm
feeling
leaving
on
on
that?
Wednesday.
Y'all have a work meeting in January.
12.
January 12th.
Yeah, why don't we postpone this to January?
Mine-
12th this year to
Hold on.
discuss it a moment.
Because,
Well, my only concern would be, we're doing a moratorium because it is a critical issue that's facing our community. And if we delay it, that allows other people to come in
and file their
and file their
applications, and
applications.
then there is, and then there is.
And I know there's a difference between filing for the overlay, because you need the classical one, but apparently we can do it in the short-term rental. And so we need to make a decision as to the scope of the moratorium sooner than later.
So from a legal perspective, I would much rather invoke a moratorium than try to invoke the pending ordinance doctrine based on the ordinance that was put before the planning commission. Simply because pending ordinance doctrine is a doctrine created by appellate case law here in Utah. It is not statutory or codified in the state law, but a moratorium is. So clearly, we have the ability to do that. If someone wants to challenge that, they're gonna be it'd be a long road to hoe to overcome a moratorium where they have a better credible argument that maybe they fit under some exception.
What we're talking about is we're trying to figure out when do you want to have.
Let me ask Heath this question. So my concern, because I haven't analyzed the statute very well, is if they file, if we decide to do a moratorium, it may depend on how we phrase the moratorium. But what if they file applications from the first of the year until whenever we hold it, like fourth week? Would they be
That's what I was
covered, or
about to
can we prohibit?
If they filed what?
If they file applications for short-term rentals,
They'd have to file a zone change application for the STR overlay, and they would need to be filing at the same time, at least an application for conceptual approval. So,
You also need.
so with the moratorium,
And he's talking about the HRZ zone too.
oh,
so if we delay, my concern is if we delay till the fourth Tuesday and
second Thursday, the 12th, January
Well,
12th,
that was a work session, but yeah.
but we could put it on there.
That we could put that on the agenda.
We're concerned how
I
many
guess-
people are gonna run in and file applications before January 12th, and then they're in,
Yeah.
before we pass.
In a highway resort zone or a commercial zone.
Either one,
They
they would be in.
could be.
The longer you wait, put it off until we do the moratorium, so the sooner we do the moratorium, the sooner we can stop. Exactly,
Thank you.
that's why we need to do it this week.
Well, could we have the ordinance written by Thursday?
That takes no time to write the ordinance.
This
So
Thursday,
what, we can meet this Thursday as far as I'm concerned.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer on that, but
What?
it's Christmas.
I know, but I guarantee we're gonna be slammed, I guarantee Crystal's gonna be slammed with people coming in here filing.
I understand.
And you're,
Oh, I can do
Council
virtual.
meeting, virtual meeting.
Virtual.
let's see what I have on Thursday. Hold on.
But I can do in our moratorium, can we still put it on a case by case basis for the applications that are already coming?
Oh, yeah,
Because they need to be physical applications. That-
Yeah.
That to me starts it, is a
So-
physical application.
on Thursday, I've got nothing. I've got nothing on my calendar. What do you have?
Okay, what time on Thursday?
I'm
Lindsay, what
available.
time's your lunch break on Thursday?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, but I get work in Lincoln Town Wednesday night, I said, no.
Oh, that's why you would have to do it virtually.
I was having a Lincoln Town Thursday night.
Wednesday night?
Do it.
No, hold on.
It's Christmas.
It is Christmas, I'm going to my dad's house. I hate to be selfish, wanting to, but I have plans.
We just have to do it before 3 weeks.
But Keith mentioned we could do it over a Zoom call. I
So
can
you
lock
can
myself in the
attend
basement.
by
and
Zoom,
do
we
it
can
from
sit here
home.
and we can include.
I can do a Zoom call in the,
So what do you think?
if you do it first thing in the morning, I'll change my
6
drive.
o'clock on the 22nd?
I will be here.
What?
I will not be here. I have dentist appointment.
We'll find somebody to sit in and be, if Monica's here, we'll have Monica sit in.
Hey, Heath, is there any way we can just vote on some kind of deal, say we're not gonna entertain receiving applications for this until we've met?
No.
Is there anything we can do? Because I really don't want to meet right before Christmas. This is,
Can we place a moratorium right now that says that we will do a case by case basis of the news?
We have, if it didn't have to be done by ordinance, if it could be done by resolution or whatever, I would probably say do it tonight, because resolutions can be oral or written, but the ordinance has to be in writing. And we should have 24 hours advance notice. to the public.
and a resolution can't be put in that says we're gonna hold off on receiving these until we have a more.
Pending ordinance resolution. Couldn't you do that tonight? We've had them before.
Sure, we can invoke the pending ordinance doctrine based on the ordinance that we have on the agenda tonight.
We call it a resolution, which is the way we pass them in the past.
Because that'll apply us until the 12th.
That'll cover us until the 12th, yes.
As long as it's worded that it's only to the twelve.
What's that?
Agreed.
She said as long as it's worded that this is only until January the 12th, 2023.
Unless they extended.
Right, but it terminates and on that date we want to reestablish.
Yeah, we can extend it if we need to.
Okay,
I just think we're gonna be, not only is it Christmas, but this isn't gonna be an easy deal, because I can already tell you, I'm not in favor of stopping in the highway resort and commercial zone. So it's gonna drag on. I can-
okay, so, this,
So how do you word that?
I know, I was about to ask
The
Steve.
pending ordinance, you gotta realize that there is a little bit of flaw in that, because the pending ordinance is only deleting the STR overlay zone. It does
I
not
understand,
address,
I understand.
you know, and someone applying between now and January 12th for an STR permit or conditional use permit for an STR in a highway resort or commercial.
Okay,
So I'm-
or the other option is, as we were saying, the 22nd, and Misty zooms in, and we do it at 6 o'clock on the 22nd. And you can zoom in.
Heath, I got one last question, sorry. So if a moratorium is put on short-term rentals, does that include existing? Do they remain grandfathered and they can continue?
It doesn't, you can't moratorium. It's only new.
We just said, Chris and Misty already brought that up.
I just,
We
Maybe
yeah, we
just
can't
I wanted
adopt
to
ordinance.
say,
We cannot adopt a land use regulation that has retroactive effect on pre-existing uses.
so how do we word that?
Well, you guys tell me how broad, if you want the moratorium to be on all new STR applications in highway resort and commercial and all applications for STR overlay rezones, I'll draft.
I mean, I'm talking the pending thing to hold us up until.
But I'm telling you, the pending.
He already said that's not gonna work, that's got flawed.
Anyone who has a house in the commercial zone or highway resort zone can come in tomorrow through January 12th and apply for a conditional use permit, and they will be vested.
Correct. And again, we don't have a problem with that, so my question is.
Well,
why
you
is
don't
that?
have.
You don't have a problem.
You don't have a
I'm the one
problem
that
with that.
received those calls saying, hey, I want to do this.
I
I'm telling you,
know.
there's not a ton of people that are lining up to do that.
Yeah.
House, the land is already pretty well sold and people live.
Yeah, but I think we're at the decision now as to whether we have a special meeting or we vote the pending ordinance and kick it down to December 12th, realizing that there's that gap that we have to live with.
If you could find a way to make the meeting on Thursday morning,
Okay,
I would be good. I will.
you will zoom in. We will.
No, I will wait.
Still-
You don't need to wait.
Hey,
You can
something
zoom in.
as simple as you guys have already, we're going through the formalities, the procedures. I envision that it could be as short as a 10-minute Zoom.
Yeah, it
meeting.
won't take
I
you
wouldn't wait.
How do you envision that? I want to know how you envision that. Because we have a key difference in opinion here. Really pretty good size.
We'll just vote on it.
All of the different settlements.
Does someone make a proposal and vote on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to me, I thought we were all on the same page, except for the scope of more.
Exactly, that's, yes, that's.
That's the
exactly-
direction on the scope of the moratorium, and I'll draft it.
Okay, so here's my, where's the back? This is gonna have a vote.
I guess I want to hear these two.
Make
I
it
wanna hear
short,
these two.
make it short, compact, what we want, can I suggest this? Let's all make our comments short and compact, but exactly key points of what we want. And tell Keith, and then Keith can come up with something that will mitigate our situation.
Let me just ask this, Misty, are you willing to put a moratorium on short-term rentals in the highway resort?
I'd rather stay on the subdivisions, that was where my whole point was in the first place. To me, those, I'll give you my backup real quick. It's what was told in the general plan by the public, that highway resort zone and commercial zones were where they wanted to show. And that's my stance on that one.
I'm sorry, we want,
Back when we did the general plans a couple of times, when I worked in the office and when I was doing the condition, they wanted the short-term rentals to be kept out of the residential areas. So
Existing.
okay,
existing residential areas, so the highway resort zone and commercial to me were already spoken on by the people. And that's in my opinion, and I feel like anybody who's already applied should be able to do it in the short,
So,
if they need to print it.
Paul, if you hear that, I think I know what the other, if the writing's on the wall and it's only going to be prohibiting
Short-term rental overlay.
short-term rental overlay, let's just invoke the pending ordinance doctrine by oral resolution tonight, kick it down the road and deal with it on the 12th.
and I'm all right with that. I still need to figure out, because I look at the ordinance on hotel resort zone. I don't see where it says short-term rentals permitted use.
It is.
And
The highway resort zone?
You should be looking at highway resort, not resort. Resort should be gone.
Yeah, resort.
Oh, it's just in the resort zone.
No, resort zone doesn't exist.
Resort zone is gone, it doesn't exist
Okay,
anymore.
I get online, and maybe this is the problem we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I get online.
It does not show short-term rentals as a conditional use in the highway resort zone.
No,
But
that's permitted.
It's not even a
it doesn't
permitted
show it
use.
as a permitted use either, and it does show it as a conditional use in the commercial zone. And I just don't know if our online ordinance is updated or not.
Oh, well,
I mean, the way it's used.
he says bed and breakfast, and I don't consider bed and
No, that's
breakfast.
not
a short-term
short-term
rental.
That's a residential.
Yeah, that's a residential hosting facility.
Okay.
So I don't think it's allowed right now with this.
I've got one.
But if we do short-term rental, it eliminates it from the commercial zone. That was my point.
I'll make a motion so we can go home tonight.
I don't mind doing the pending document.
Doctrine to kick it down until January 12th at our work meeting. At that point, the review.
Can I just clarify your motion?
Sure, thank
Is it your motion that we invoke the pending ordinance doctrine and indicate that all land use applications, if we move them forward, has to comply with this pending ordinance that we have on the agenda? And that pending ordinance and this policy that you're moving to adopt by oral resolution stay in place until our next town council.
Until the 12th.
If that's your motion, then
Second,
Aye.
I was trying to decide
if she doesn't call.
person by person or if it was just all in favor.
Do you want to?
Okay, yes, I'll do one at a time. Okay, Paul,
aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Jean, aye. Leroy, aye.
Misty, I.
I'll make another motion.
Yes, make the next motion.
Would you like it?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor,
Sorry.
I've never turned over a dog in a quarter. I realized I did not turn this on.
Okay, yeah, it's us. I keep looking, that's.
It's
too many words.
I saw your email,
I don't know.
I know it's your-
What's that? I thought it was two.
We'll find it else.
Fixated on- I don't see it. No, I think it's on my house. And my voice.
Yeah, you can't get that.
No.
Most people do.
Do you want to turn on the software?
I have egg food. Yeah, no, I'll bring it.
Okay, oh, I'm gonna go get those out of the car for you. I'm gonna go get the plat, the final plat, so you can look at it.
Well, no, I looked at it. That's what, before I came in here. So she unlocked the door for me. So I sat.
Oh, those plants, I'm talking about the final plat staples that I got, I was getting the Mylar,
Those
okay,
plans.
okay.
They show there is no interconnection between, there are four separate.
Four separate units,
Yeah,
floor
they don't
plans.
even, I mean, if they built that per plan, you would have.
Oh, shit.
and-